Hey everyone, welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today's episode is about how change comes through creativity and community. For this episode, I'm joined by two guests, Rameen and Mahnoor, who are both working on a project called Daak Chithi, which is a global youth organization that brings together the age-old golden tradition of letter writing with a modern twist. It was great to talk with both of them, so without further ado, let's kick off this episode featuring Rameen and Mahnoor.
My name is Rameen, and I am the country director and operations officer here at Daak Chithi. I was where this whole project kind of rooted into Pakistan from Bangladesh. So everything tied to Daak Chithi that happens within Pakistan, I kind of take care of, whether that's curating a team or curating new projects, all of that. I'm currently completing my bachelor's from NUST here in Islamabad. And I'm working on the side with Invicta Career Counseling, and I'm also a senior editor for this writing post. On the side, I'm occasionally a poet, but I don't like monetizing that much. I think that's just an extension to my personhood and the reason that I'm here doing all this incredible work with these incredible people.
That was wonderful. That was awesome. A great way to kick us off. And our other guest.
All right. So I'm Mahnoor, and I would, like Rameen would say, an occasional poet myself as well. But apart from that, I work as a client relationship manager at a fitness studio in Islamabad. And it's a lot of like people dealing. So although I'm more of an introvert, it's like the job that I usually pick up is like it's got a lot to do with meeting people and communicating and stuff like that. So yeah, that's it. And I'm a big reader. I mean, I love reading. Although it's been a while, I haven't been into reading, but that is the reason why I decided to go for publishing my own poetry. And I hope I'm getting there, but I do have like two poetry published at the moment, collections, and I have one right here staring at me, and I'm a bit nervous. So yeah, I have done my bachelor's in linguistics. I didn't continue it. I dropped out. And I did, I think, Spanish for 2 years, so I can speak a bit of that. And I think it was Rameen who asked me to, join the lovely initiative of Daak Chithi, and I'm one of the curators there. So yeah, that's me.
That is wonderful. That's such a great introduction. And I know that we came to be together because of Daak Chithi, which I'm really excited to be able to talk with you guys about a little bit more. Can you tell me about how this project was created? I know, of course, it's kind of come to both of you and now you're very involved in it, but tell me the story behind this project.
So the idea came to Murshid, who's sort of the mastermind behind all of this. He's from Bangladesh and does amazing work in terms of connecting people and just creating this bridge between cultures. A lot of our history as Pakistanis and Bengalis is rooted in a lot of erasure and a lot of separation. And so to kind of counter that, I think this project plays a really beautiful part in bridging those two worlds together. Murshid also has another project called Team Bertho, and that kind of showcases humanness in such like a tender way, and is like a very beautiful overlook into everyone's personhood. So you get to know all these stories that sometimes might feel foreign, sometimes might feel familiar. So the idea of Daak Chithi is kind of rooted in the same ideal where we want to bring back a tradition that's very dear and personal to all of us. Definitely, we all know people within our circles, within our families who used to write letters and might even have archives. So that is sort of where this started. And how it found me was I saw Murshid advertising this on one of his socials, and I had known him from a few mutuals of mine who all happened to be very, very profound poets. And I applied for the interview because I said, why not? I love community efforts, and I think this one particularly spoke to me because it very beautifully ties letter writing to a sense of community and just sort of bridges those two worlds together as well. And I applied, and he really liked and enjoyed my craft as well, and had heard of my poetry from a very different world, a very different lens as well. And that's sort of how I recruited Mahnoor into my team.
So I think I met Rameen back in 2020, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it was at a poetry recital that we were reciting our poems at, and we instantly like we connected, and we were like we thought we'd never like meet each other again, and then we somehow did, because I think it was poetry that connected us. And
Mhm.
then I started this a little community of like local Anglophone poets with a friend of mine, and that's when I got to know more about Ramin, because we were all connecting through poetry. And then I think it was around November. No, it was September. It was around September. Ramin was like, "Oh, do you want to join something where we, bring back letter writing and stuff like that?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so in. Like, this is something that," because as when I was a kid, like I remember me and all of my cousins, we used to rummage through old letters between like our married aunts and uncles, and we would be really young, and we would just go around sneaking through their letters. And it was sort of like a forbidden thing, because it was between two people, but we were reading them. And we just hide away, tucked in, reading all the love letters that we were not supposed to read, because it was between those two people. And that, and then my grandfather always like writing travel logs, and he would post us those, and we would get to read all those letters, and he would make us, all of us, sit and read those. He would recite those letters, and we would all sit and listen to them. And I was like, it's been too long that I haven't connected or gotten back to that art. And when Murshidul started this, I was like, this is such a beautiful thing. I'm so in. And I think we had so many fun events together, and that's how it started.
That's so wonderful. I think that it is such a cool project, reinvigorating letter writing. And I think it's something that we just don't do as often anymore. I know some of my friends have like a mailing list, and they're trying to kind of get more into letter writing and postcard sending. And I think there's a lot of people that really do want to still have that form of connection. And you guys are doing it so well. So I think it's beautiful. I know that you guys are going to start to, or maybe it's already been done, but start to read some of them. People are going to read their own letters and send them. Can you tell me about some of those? Just maybe some of the letters that you've really enjoyed or that you've gotten to be a part of. Some of your favorites, if you can.
Definitely. I feel like my grandfather from my mom's side was a poet, and I have a very, very, very profound connection with him through just the craft of writing and poetry. And one of the most beautiful letters I've ever read was his letter to my grandmother right before his marriage to her. And it was written in Punjabi. And I have a very like beginner's understanding of Punjabi, because my first language was Urdu, and I could never tap into that aspect of my personality and identity. But just reading it and like feeling through all the different aspects of their love, so from such a different lens, was very invigorating. And it also opened us to this idea of having Daak Dastan, which is the project where we read other people's letters. And we've received a lot of submissions, and a lot of them were very personal. One of them that I particularly feel like stood out to me was from a midwife. Yeah, perspective of a midwife, and she explores grief and activism through her craft, and just learning to accept death as something that's so in arm's reach, I would say, for someone like her. And it was just a very beautiful letter to the first child that she lost under her care. And the way it was written, the essence of that poetry, I don't think I've ever read anything as powerful as that. So those two letters are definitely up there for me.
Yeah, I remember reading it myself, and it was a beautiful letter, and it was very heartfelt. I think for me, because I think I picked up the letters by Kafka, the ones he wrote for Milena, and I think those were like, something that I I first read in form of literature, and that was the first time I was, say, introduced to Kafka. And when I read his other literature, I was like, is it the same person who wrote these letters? And that's when I did something. I was like, since there aren't many letters that, in fact, there are none of the letters that she wrote back, which were, in publication. It was only his that were available. So I was like, maybe I can write something for him, as being Milena. And that's what I did. And I realized that, oh my, like this is something that, responding to someone who's long dead and then pretending to be someone who is like not even alive at the moment. Because, we could feel the intensity that he has written for her. And that was such a, like, I love those letters, and I still keep on going back and forth to his letters. And I just wrote one, and I was like, oh, like, I'm pretty sure the letters that she wrote were something else completely. Like, it's a sad thing that they weren't recorded.
Mhm.
And I think that was the first thing that made me want to write letters. Apart from, being kids and writing to your pen pals and stuff like that. And I think the letter that actually stood out for me was at one of the events. I don't specifically remember who, but they were actually crying when they recited it, and it was such a beautiful letter. And I think they were not in touch with that person anymore. And I think it was at the I8 Library Circle event. That person, he was literally shivering reciting that letter, and it made you feel something, like you got goosebumps just listening to that. I don't remember it. I think I might still have it, because I have like tons of letters from the events that we put through, and I still keep them. And I think I should go back and read them all again, because like it's like you get to have a sneak peek into someone else's soul, and it's like it's out there for the world to read.
I'm going to ask you guys I guess this is kind of a tricky question, and you can take this however you would like, but I work with a lot of different creators of different types at Be the Change Media Network, which this podcast is part of. But we have podcasters and we have people who do short form videos, and we're working on documentaries, and we have bloggers, which is probably the closest thing to your poetry and your writing, which I think is incredible. But why do you choose poetry, written art? Why is that kind of the medium that you both have chosen and that you expressed yourself through? I'm sure that you do different forms as well. It might not be limited to those, but can you tell me about that? What led you to want to write? That's a huge question, so take that how you would like, but I'd love to know.
I started poetry through this network of poets called Undercurrent. This entire workshop was led by this wonderful poet, Desiree Della Giacomo. And the first time I heard Desiree, it was at a slam poetry event. And it was so invigorating, it was so powerful to see that words held this great essence of movement. The way she would perform it, it was very visual. So even though she was performing it, it had to be written down first. And to witness that mechanism, that entire process through which a poet becomes a poet, is very, very inspiring. And is what has led me to my poethood, as I like to call it. But the reason I chose poetry was because for me, it's very visual. It's a very sensory experience to sit with pen and paper and talk about a moment in time and sort of expand it into its own momentum. And I think that allows me to understand my personhood better. It allows me to understand my community better, and just sort of like allows me to visualize everything more purely, more honestly, more profoundly, more deeply. Apart from all of that, it's just a very archaic sport. I feel like I'm really drawn to typewriters and just the sensory visuals of all of that. So I feel like those two factors are what drive me to just using this medium as opposed to documenting it. But definitely you can layer all those elements afterwards. I feel like poetry is everywhere. It's in everything. It's in all of us. There's no set distinction that makes up a poet. I feel like we're all poets in time. And that's why it's something I feel like that's very accessible for every single person that surrounds us. We brought this point up at one of our workshops where a few individuals came up to us and said they had been wanting to join this workshop of ours. However, they didn't feel like they were poet enough, or they didn't feel inspired. And that conversation I remember so vividly is really what drew me to the idea of using this medium to lead Daak Chithi here, because I feel like everyone is a poet. Everyone has the potential of being a poet. And you recognize that when people come together in community to write and to recite and to perform. So yeah, that is why poetry is the medium we chose.
I 100% agree. I take that a bit further. I still remember, like you said, that a lot of people came up to us and they were like, oh, we're not poetic enough. And almost every letter that we read, like the way it was crafted, we were like, this is so much better than the poetry that we've written in the past. Like, this is such, you become, I think overall, like a person is a born poet. Like, we are default that way. We just have to explore it. We just have to unlock it. And some of us, obviously, we don't get to because we don't read it enough. We don't recite it enough or listen to it enough. But if you do get the privilege at a young age to actually be surrounded by that, it's such a beautiful feeling. I remember my journey started, I think I was 15 or something, and I came across a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay. And I was like, oh my God. Like when I read her biography, I realized that she was the same age as I am. But the way she portrayed her world through lyrics and through poems, it was outwardly. I was like, how can one be so perfectly curated in whatever that they're saying and still convey something out there that touches your soul? And I feel like maybe she got me into poetry. Like she was able to unlock that for me. And yeah, I think it just spilled out after that. It didn't stop. It just poured out.
That's so wonderful. I think for both of you, that's just so beautiful. And the way that you speak, you can tell that you're both poets. I think that I mean that in the nicest way. I feel like the way that you both are speaking, it sounds so beautiful. And you both have such a way with your words. And I think that it makes sense that that's the medium that you chose. So I have one more question for both of you. And I think that you're both going to have beautiful answers to this. But lots of people might want to make change, make a difference, whether that's in their communities or on a global scale, like you guys are doing through all of this work. But a lot of people might not know how to get started. So what advice would you like to share with those people who might be listening?
I would definitely like to advocate that your sense of activism begins with your personhood, and that could be interpreted however an individual might like to. But my politics with my self, with my body, with my culture, with this divide that we feel in every aspect of our lives, I started experiencing that very early. And one of my forms of activism was through writing. Writing kind of helped me mobilize all those pent up feelings that I felt couldn't be mirrored. And that mobility is what leads you to your community. So whether it's poetry, whether it's spoken word, whether it's just simple writing, something as personal as your journal, I feel like writing is an amazing outlet to kind of help you mobilize your feelings and also your politics, which go hand in hand, in my opinion. Initially, when I came out in a community as close knit as mine, I didn't have an outlet. I didn't think I had a community, and that very quickly changed when I put those thoughts to paper, and I realized that my politics was personal because of how closely knit all of that was to me and my sense of self. And ever since then, everything poured out, and I found my people in Daak Chithi and Undercurrent and Rainbow Riders, and there's so many other communities I can list here right now that sort of helped me curb that isolation and turned it into something beautiful that I get to sit here, appreciate, celebrate with you guys, and call poetry.
I think poetry being a great catharsis is something that I completely agree with. Like Rameen said, it's one of the outlets that we need. I feel like for like living the life that we have, that God gave to us. I mean, a human is made in a way that he is a creator, the way God is. And we just need an outlet, and we just take a lot of our time to figure out exactly what we want to do and how we can take that out. We busy ourselves with work, our jobs, and stuff like that. We go by titles, and it gets difficult to live with so much pent up inside of us. Like Rameen said, it goes with her politics and how she can, be true to herself is through her poetry. So it's all that. How do you let it out? I mean, I work with people and we work out all the time, like we're exercising, but I feel like the mental exercise for me is poetry. Like I need to take all of that out. And for some people it's art. It's such a beautiful way that we have our creative pursuits that we follow. So a great outlet is very necessary. And maybe for you it's not poetry at the moment, but look deep within and find that out. Find out what your outlet is. Like, I mean, we can easily grab a cigarette, we can go around, drinking, and we can get on drugs. But I think the best sort of outlet at the moment is probably like something creative, because that's what we're born to do. We're born to create. I mean, we have our babies, we celebrate motherhood. I treat my poems like they're my children. And like, I feel like I have to take care of them. I have to nourish them. I have to water them like plants. I have to give it sunlight as well. It's so many things for me. Like my poetry is so like I remember in our culture, like being a mother is treated like it's like, oh, it's a huge thing that, oh, you just had a baby, that congratulations. And I still remember there was a family group of mine on WhatsApp and everybody was congratulating somebody who had a baby. And I published my collection I think soon after that, and I was like, oh, I just birthed a baby as well. So I mean, where are my due congrats? So it's really important to be surrounded by people, to have that sort of community. And if there's nothing around you, just create one. And that's what we did. And it's really important. I think once we start walking towards the path of your creative pursuit, you eventually find your people.
It was great to talk with Rameen and Mahnoor, and I was really inspired by the joy and commitment they bring to their work, which really came through in this conversation. If you'd like to learn more about Daak Chithi, I will link all of that information in the description of this episode, and you should definitely check out their community and other creative communities like it, including Be the Change Media Network, because change comes through creativity and community. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can find Rameen and Mahnoor on Instagram, and I included those links in the description of this episode. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at Be the Change Media Network. I'm working on expanding Be the Change Media Network, which means bringing you more inspiring stories from amazing guests and shared by incredible hosts. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could leave the podcast a rating and a comment, because it will help these stories to reach, educate, and inspire more people. And I would also love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.